Many years ago, when I was about to be ordained, I had a rite of passage at the Jewish Theological Seminary called the Senior Sermon, which was a moment where every senior rabbinical student gave a talk, gave a Dvar Torah as best they could, trying to culminate all of their learning in a moment of performance with peers and with teachers. Mine turned out to be this week's Parsha. Mine turned out to be the week of the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. Since then, and way before then, and I'm sure for the rest of my life, this is one of those stories that you just cannot escape, no matter how much you wish, no matter how much I wish it weren't in the Torah. It is in the Torah, and if you're unfamiliar with it, lucky you. But if you're watching, that will be short-lived. In this week's Parsha is a moment where God commands Abraham to sacrifice his child, and the language of it is incredibly intense. Kachna et bincha et yechidcha asher ahavta et Yitzchak. Take your child, your only child, the one you love, Isaac, and bring him up to me on the mountain and sacrifice him. And I remember among the first times that I really contemplated this text as an adult, and it didn't resolve anything, and it's been many years since, and still it's not resolved. It's one of those stories that, again, if it weren't in the Torah, I wouldn't believe it were in the Torah. How could it possibly be? How could God be involved in such a story? How can this be one of the cornerstones of a Jewish journey? We read it not only when we come up to it in the Torah, we also read it on Rosh Hashanah. And I share these thoughts with you on a day when bombs are being sent to officials in the United States, not limited to Hillary Clinton, to Barack Obama, to Kamala Harris, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, to the journalists, including CNN, and including George Soros, who's a philanthropist in America, survivor of the Shoah. This is a moment where the kind of response that I've had to the Akedah through the years fits incredibly well, and it is to our pain that it does. I remember debating about the binding of Isaac with a dear friend of mine a long time ago over Shavuot in Berkeley. And she was of the mindset similar to Maimonides and Soloveitchik and Kierkegaard, to name three leading thinkers who have responded to the Akedah, to the binding of Isaac through the years, who suggested that what made Avram so amazing, what makes the story so powerful, is that he demonstrates the ability to suspend his notion of the ethical when God commands. Said a little bit more powerfully, the teleological suspension of the ethical, which means when God commands, I let go of what I think is right, what I believe is just, because either God said so, or maybe saying it a little bit differently, because there's a higher ethics than the one that I understand. The reason why I bring that up is because I absolutely reject it. I absolutely reject, and I think we all must, the notion that Avram succeeded at the task of the binding of Isaac because he listened to God's command. Ultimately, the test might be, Avram, you stood up to me when I said I would destroy Sodom and Amorah, Sodom and Gomorrah. I'm telling you, I'm commanding you to sacrifice your child. Avram might have failed the test because he didn't say no. What I remember saying to the person I was debating about the Akedah so many years ago, she said that what made Avram so spectacular is that he suspended what he believed to be right when God commanded. And I looked at her, she's a colleague of mine, someone that I feel very friendly with, and I said, I know that what you're saying has its roots in traditional commentary, but what you're saying is also the reason that people fly planes into buildings. It is also the reason that people send bombs to people they disagree with. So I'm speaking at the heart of an American moment where violence is absolutely being encouraged and cheered on by a president, where there are votes on the line in 2 weeks, and I hate to be partisan. I really do. I have my own politics. That's not what this is about. This is about the willingness to commit violent acts in the name of what you believe. And as my teacher, Rabbi Erwin Kula, says, when I believe that God is more with me than with you, I go and get a gun. And so the power of this week's Parsha is not some flowery message that we can tie up in a bow. It's a painful, ravaging truth that hasn't gone anywhere. If you are willing to hurt someone in the name of your truth, you are absolutely not following God. You are following an absolute wrongness. That is not God. I look at the Akedah and I say, and we all should say to God, what Avram said 4 chapters before in Breshit, in Genesis, when God says, I'm going to destroy Sodom and Amorah, Avram says words that reverberate through history, and in every righteous moment, every righteous soul is called to say exactly this. Chalil alach me'asot davar kazeh. Shame on you, God, if you contemplate doing such a thing. Shame on you. And I believe that in that moment, it stung God so much that even God had to pause and recalibrate. The relationship with every prophet after Avram was different. And when Avram was willing to follow along with this awful command, with the command to commit violence in God's name, God never speaks to Avram again. And not less tragic, Yitzchak, Avram and his son, never speak again. Our willingness to commit violence and atrocity in the name of something we believe in means that what we believe in is not worth it, and we are not faithful servants of God. Avram was willing to do the unthinkable. He just turned into an automaton. The verses that follow the command from God are verb after verb after verb after verb. Avram doesn't even stop to think. And if you want to hear the most tender and ravaging part of the parsha, of course we don't, but it's in there. Listen to this moment. God calls to Avram, and Avram says, Hineni. And according to many commentaries, the word Hineni, I am here, means I am meek and humble and ready. Avram says, Hineni. And then as he is walking with Yitzchak up the mountain, Yitzchak, his son, says, Avi, my father. And Avram looks at his son and says, Hineni. Same word. Here I am. And then right afterwards, when the angel calls to Avram to stop this terrible, terrible thing from happening, Avram says, Hineni. I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Well, if you don't have a center, a conviction of soul that would lead you to question the awfulness of a command like that, you aren't grounded in the world anymore. Avram has gone through trauma that makes it impossible to think well about the decisions that are ahead. And so I say to anyone who tries to contextualize these bombs being sent to officials in America today, how dare you? Chalil alach. Shame on you. This is a moment that calls not for unity of thinking. We are never going to think the same. We won't vote the same. You don't have to believe in my politics to believe that bombs being sent in the name of an idea are absolute sins, and that a president who cheers on violence is sinning and encouraging us all to do so. So you vote your conscience, but don't you dare find a way to explain away this violence or to minimize it. I challenge us all in the name of our Parsha, in the name of this moment of our world, and in the name of a God who has learned since the Akedah. We dare not allow this moment to continue unchallenged. There are 2 weeks until the vote. Please, please, please let there be no more bindings of Isaac's, no more violence in the name of God or ideas. We can do better than that. America is much better than that. Our ancestors did not die to protect a country that would encourage hurting each other. Patriotism is bigger than that. No more pain. No more Akedah. Certainly not in the name of a belief.